Evening, my name is Jim Conlan from RCB Radio Sport, live at 92.5 and 94.8 FM and online at www.rcb.ie. As we look ahead to the next game in our senior championship build-up, we have the repeat of the 2019 final between Kilmurry Ibrickane and Miltown Malbay. I'm delighted, first of all, to be joined by the Kilmurry Ibrickane manager, Aidan Maloney. I suppose, Aidan, in 2019, I suppose, before you got an awful lot out of it in terms of getting to a county final again. I know you probably didn't get the results you wanted, but in terms of the championship, you had an awful lot of good performance. I suppose the highlight was that victory over Cracklow in the semi-final, and I suppose in terms of the QC Cup, in terms of it was, you sort of got momentum towards the end of it, and I suppose you were out of the running early on in the stages. So you built form coming into the championship. You had a very good ending to the QC Cup, and it sort of rolled into championship for you.
That's right. Yeah, there's no doubt we started poorly last year in the QC Cup. We lost our two first games quite heavily, and but we got a bit of momentum after that. You know, we had a good run towards the end of the QC Cup, and narrowly missed out, I think, by a point, I think, overall to get into the semi-final. But we were happy enough with our QC Cup performances overall. The championship, you know, it went well for us. We were happy. We played well, you know, and improved pretty much every game. And you know, obviously we met our near neighbours in the final, and you know, probably the first day, I suppose, we were probably lucky to get a draw. But yeah, look, I suppose I think the better team probably overall won in the end.
I suppose, Aidan, it's a new year now, 2020, and it's a sort of a strange year. I'm just speaking to a number of managers. Some managers got a league game in terms of Gary Cup, Division 3, QC Cup. Were you one of the fortunate ones? Did you get a game early on the year? I know it's one game, and probably looking back, but did you still get a game this year?
We did, actually, and you know, I suppose we haven't played Miltown too much in the championship, and we actually played in the first round of the QC Cup again, and a very poor winter's day, and you know, 35-mile-an-hour wind in Miltown, and yeah, we came away with a win on that day, but again, probably, you know, there was probably only 5 or 6 of first team on each side, like on the particular day. But we were happy enough. We played quite well on the day, and a lot of our younger players played well, and we were quite happy on the day leaving. But that was the only game in the QC Cup, obviously.
Yeah, and you sort of mentioned younger players, and probably what we've known the last few years, Kilmurry have been great to sort of bring their talented young players. You sort of blood one player each year, or possibly 2 players each year. And before before Keelan came along, Dermot was the player you blooded. But last year you were able to blood Daniel Walsh, and he had a fine campaign for you in terms of championship, and he had those forwards carried on as well for the Clare under-20s, and he had a pivotal role for the Clare under-20s, who narrowly went down the Munster semi-final, played a great game actually against Cork. And Daniel was probably one of the finds for you last year, but you also had a player who's progressively well during the league, Dermot King, but he picked up injuries, and I presume Dermot would have featured for you a good bit in the championship last year if it wasn't for those injury concerns.
Yeah, Dermot has been quite unfortunate overall. I suppose he's, you know, he's picked up a few injuries at vital times, and but a very promising player, there's no doubt. And you know, we have some good players. You know, we have, you know, Adam O'Connor's coming through there. You know, and you know, young Shannon is coming through, and we have a few lads coming through, and they just, you know, they just need a little bit of time, and I think that they'll make a big impact in the near future, you know.
And one of those players, I don't know, serve me right, Aidan, is he back with you due to the breakdown in the soccer in terms of, is Quaylan O'Dea part of the panel this year?
Yeah, it's a juggling act, there's no doubt. You know, we'd love to have Quaylan on our team and involved in full time, and he, you know, he's a very nice young fella and very interested in playing for Kilmurry, but you know, obviously his focus at the moment is on the soccer, and you know, obviously. But look, we'll see how the soccer goes and how that progresses after the Cobalt, and you know, so we're always hopeful that he'll be able to give us something, but yeah, it's up in the air at the moment. You know, it's a shame because he could make such a difference to us. You know, he's such a quality player, but you know, that's where we are at the moment. You know.
Yeah, and I suppose, Aidan, in terms of last year's panel, I know Aidan Bracken is away travelling, and he lost a great servant to Kilmurry Ibrickane there due to back injuries, and Noel Downs. He stepped away from the senior club in Kilmurry Ibrickane. In terms of some of the older lads, I suppose I know some of them, they're around my goal. I would have come up against them. Are they still back? Is the likes of Keith King, Steve Maloney, Shane Hickey, Marty McMahon in the Conlan, are they still going strong for this year?
Yeah, well, look at yes, they are. Yeah, they're all pretty much interested. You know, a few injuries here and there. You know, just coming out of the break now as such, and you know, when we're picking it up, a few of them are showing the strains a little bit. But yeah, look at all quality players, and I'm sure that all are going to, you know, play their part for us at some stage or another during the championship. And you know, look, at the end of the day, we try to work on, you know, some teams are trying to pick their top 15, but I think really what we're trying to get is our top 20 or top 22 that we can, you know, I think that's the only way you're going to progress in this championship, especially with games happening fairly rapid, and you know, there's no second chances almost now at this stage, you know. So yeah, it's all about getting that squad together, and I'm sure, you know, all of our older fellas now, you know, have been great servants and still are, you know, and really they're not willing to give up yet, you know, and it's great to see Keith King and, you know, Ian McInerney and Inda Coughlin and Martin McMahon, all these guys, you know, pushing hard and trying to get themselves up to the pace of the game that, you know, we need them to be. And look, they're quality players, and you know, it'll be up to them when, you know, what they can give us, you know.
Yeah, I suppose, Aidan, Kilmurry Ibrickane, you're sort of fortunate in one way that you don't have really many dual players that are involved in the hurling. I know Aidan McCarthy is a prominent player for Aina Kilnamona, and obviously he was your starting midfielder last year. But apart from Aidan aside, you can really have high numbers of training. I suppose you're not sort of juggling the hurling, the dual player aspect. I suppose you get Aidan for he sort of balance, he gives you 50-50 in terms of what he can give you. But apart from that, there's no other real distractions. I suppose with Miltown, they have a more stronger contingent involved with Kilmaley hurling. So you don't really, as a manager, you don't really have that to worry or deal with.
No, we don't. That's true. That's true to say. Yeah, you know, he's a great athlete, and you know, he gives us as much time as he can, and you know, obviously he's with Aina Kilnamona, but a great prospect as well, you know, and we'd love to have him to play more football, but you know, obviously he has to split his time at best he can. But yeah, but overall we have good numbers, you know, we have good numbers of training, and you know, the guys are very enthusiastic, and you know, there's a lot of competition for places, and it's not easy for us to pick a team and to, you know, nearly keep everybody happy, because everybody wants to play, and that's good. That's what we like to see, and we like competition for places, and there's no doubt we have that. But you know, our window is so short to probably find our best team now at this stage, between integrating younger fellas coming through, which we know we have to do, and we have to get legs on the field if we have to have any chance of being successful. And yeah, but look, that's the joy of it, and I think everybody is in the same boat as ourselves. But you know, the short window and not as much game time and quality game time is an issue for us.
Yeah, and I suppose, Aidan, if I can come on to your opponents now, Miltown Malbay, I suppose last year, in terms of David O'Brien stepping into the breach, it was a seamless transition between himself and Mikey Nealon, because obviously David knew the players. He brought him up from intermediate. He won the intermediate championship. He brought him to a Munster intermediate final. So there was never a case of a sort of transitioning between managers. But in terms of this year now, Miltown have a new manager again, I suppose, Morris Reidy, but they have a coach in Ned English there from Kentucky and Cork. So that's going to be a sort of bit different. I imagine it won't be the same seamless transition as there was from Mikey Nealon to David O'Brien, because Ned is probably coming in trying to get to know the players. Morris is probably involved in younger players. So there could be a sort of, it won't be as seamless as such. Miltown will be still trying to, the management trying to be finding out and putting their own shape on things, while Miltown under Mikey Nealon to David O'Brien, it was just a seamless transition.
Yeah, look, I suppose, I'm not going to say too much about Miltown in one sense, but look, they've been an excellent side over the last couple of years, even the last 4 or 5 years. They built a group of players there, and that's not going to change very much. I mean, they have their 18, 20 players as well that they call on all the time, and it's not going to change much. They have some great leaders there with Gordon Kelly and the two Clearys and as such there, and I'm sure that there's not going to be a lot of change. They've been successful, particularly over the last 2 years, and I think they'll try and stick to the formula that's served them well over the last couple of years. So we play them in the first round, obviously, and it's going to be a tough game. But look, I think we're starting to get to know each other quite well now. They know us and we know them, and it's there's not going to be much between it. Let's put it that way. And but I think Miltown are they're still they have a really good forward line. They have a lot of threat from different areas, and strong in midfield, and they're good solid backs, and they have a method of playing, and they've developed it over a few years now, and it's successful for them.
Yeah, and I suppose, Aidan, in terms of last year, I suppose, looking back, I suppose probably the most influential player coming down the home stretch was probably Conor Cleary, a towering sort of performance. And we know in terms of hurlers playing football, the more football they get into them, the better they get on the championship, the likes of Tony Kelly, Clondigad, I've Cathal Malone in his time, and once Conor Cleary, once they get 3 or 4 games of football into them, they really, really blossom and really become real star players. But I suppose for Conor this year, he probably won't have that as such. When you're meeting him, he won't have sort of much football played as such, but he is really a towering sort of an influence, and he's probably the jigsaw for Miltown in terms of their supply to their forward line. So I presume that's one area that you're probably looking to get a stranglehold and stop his dominance.
Yeah, look, I mean, you just have to look at the county finals last year, and there's no doubt, we had Keith King, which was, was carrying injury into both games last year, and, didn't last the second game, and was a huge loss to us. But there's no doubt Conor is a real leader for the team, and, he influences all the guys around him, and, he gives them confidence, and, he's a good performer, and, I know he might not have as much football played as he would like most of us, I suppose, in that bracket. But he's a good leader, and there's, when it comes to it, I'm sure, he'll stand up and be counted like he has done in the past.
Yeah, I suppose, Aidan, like Kilmurry, you've such a great history, such great pedigree. For you're looking, I suppose, this championship, you're looking at this Miltown game very much as a knockout game, in terms of you want to take, I assume, the shortest route to the county semi-final. You win your first game, you go into the winners round, but if beating Miltown in the opening round, that'll give you massive confidence. I presume you won't fear anyone in that winners round, because you obviously, to beat the county champions in the first round, you won't fear anyone in the winner start round section. You win that game, you're into county semi-final, you have the luxury then of being able to get extra training, but also you get to see that round robin, that 3-way playoff, and you get to see potentially your opponents. So there's an awful lot of advantages to take the shorter route, but for the team that it gets defeated and has to take the longer route, you're possibly looking at 2 games on the one day in a 3-way playoff, and I suppose that, as for you mentioned the team there about legs and fitness and energy, for Kilmurry, that's probably a daunting task to play 2 games in the one day. You very much like to take the shorter route. I know you have an awful lot of experienced players, but for the elder players in your team, that could be a daunting task playing 2 games in the one day.
Yeah, look, it's all about winning, in my opinion. Winning breeds confidence into a team, and you never want to go into a losers group, no matter what the prospects might be as such. But I think really, and I've said it to our lads, it's all about winning. And it's really every game is knockout. From basically, I suppose, there is a second chance, I suppose, in the first round, but basically you want to go through, and you're obviously focused on trying to win 4 games and win a championship. This year is usually 5, but yeah, I think I'd rather deal with the confidence you get from a win rather than trying to build people back up, and you don't know how people really act after a loss as such. So I look at it, we've always tried to win our games, obviously, and that's the way forward for us. And if we can build momentum with our lads, we know that we can improve after every game, and it's vital to try and get a win in the first game.
Yeah, and since you've come back now, so this training period, I suppose you're only back 2 or 3 weeks. So I speak to a few clubs there, like Kilfenora, other clubs who probably struggle to get a challenge game. It's been such a narrow window to organise. I know you're not involved in the O'Gorman Cup. Have you the same sort of difficulties trying to, I suppose you're looking for games inside the county? I suppose it's very hard to get challenge games outside the county with everything going on with restrictions. And I suppose teams that are playing next week in the O'Gorman Cup and have an opening round, preliminary round game, quarter round, they'll have 2 games going in ahead of the championship. Is that something you're not really worried about, or have you the prospect, have you got 1 or 2 games under the belt since you've come back?
Yeah, well, next Sunday we have a challenge match arranged outside the county now, and they are quite difficult to get, and definitely a quality game is very important to try and get. But yeah, we've tried to get the guys up to speed, within ourselves. We've actually tried to play 7-a-side kind of tournaments between ourselves, and it went quite well. And just to get game time and get guys back, into game fitness, I suppose. The fitness levels are not too bad, but match fitness is probably lacking. So we've been happy enough with the progress with that, but we are actually going to play 1 or 2 challenge matches outside now, and hopefully will get us up to speed as much as we can. But look, it's a tight window to prepare as such. Lads were training on their own, and which every club has been doing, and we've come together over the last couple of weeks and tried to build on that. And we've been happy, we've been delighted with the turnouts, and the numbers of training have been great, but it's still about we need to get those few games now to especially test out these younger fellas and see if they can step up and move in there and move on some of these older fellas, I suppose. Let's put it that way,
Yeah, I suppose, Aidan, last 20 seconds, it's all guns blazing for the challenge in Miltown. Any major injury concerns? Anyone touching sort of go for that game, for that opening round game?
Yeah, sure. Look, we have a few strains, and even Marty McMahon there now has had a back injury for quite a while, and he's he's doing light training as such. I know he'll be available when the going gets tough, but I'm a little bit worried about 1 or 2 that have pulled up lately a little bit now. But I think I think really, when it comes to it, I think we won't be too far off the mark. If everyone keeps a clean bill of health between now and in the match, we won't have any excuses for numbers anyway.
Aidan, thanks for taking the time to talk to us this evening. We wish you, your management in Kilmurry Ibrickane, all the Kilmurry Ibrickane players, a very prosperous campaign to regain the Jack Daly in 2020. hopefully it's a good campaign for all Kilmurry Ibrickane supporters, fans, players. You've such great tradition in Clare football, and you've helped the county team through many years, and also been a very successful club team. And we wish you and Kilmurry Ibrickane all the best in the upcoming championship. Thanks for taking time to talk to us, Aidan.
Thanks, Jim. All right, talk to you. Bye.
Thank you. 92.5 and 94.8 FM, and online at www.rcb.ie. I'm delighted this evening to be joined by Morris Reidy, the Miltown Malbay manager, as we look ahead of our preview of the senior championship clash between near neighbours Miltown Malbay versus Kilmurry Ibrickane. And I suppose, Morris, it's the sort of the golden chalice, the Miltown job at the moment. You've come in from two successful managers in terms of what Michael Neelan achieved, in terms of what David O'Brien achieved. And I suppose at the start of the year, in terms of Miltown, when you got this position in charge, you must have been thinking to yourself, well, the goal this year obviously is do better than last year and probably right the wrongs, what happened in Munster campaign. But that's all sort of thrown out the window and full concentration in Clare. And how disappointing is it for Miltown Malbay that there is no Munster club this year? Because I suppose you must have been really itching in the heartache of last year, because you would have obviously been hoping to get back into Munster club final that you got into that time with Dr. Cokes, and it didn't go to plan last year for you. And I suppose that was a big incentive, I suppose, for you getting the job and to put your name forward to the Miltown job. Is you're thinking, well, I have a real golden era of players here, and probably the dream of getting a Munster, getting back into Munster club final. But that's not the case for this year.
No, I suppose COVID has thrown everything up in the air, really, and it's been very challenging for the players and for the management to kind of build on what's happened in previous years. You know, when you take the job with Miltown, this is a golden era for them, and there's some very, very good players playing in the Miltown jersey at the moment. And I suppose, you know, when you took the job at the beginning of the year, you're thinking about getting the structures in place, getting the background team in place. You're thinking about all the challenges that are in front of you, you know, how you're going to improve the players and maximise the performances. Specifically thinking about Munster Club final at that very early stage in March is probably not something that really was on my mind. It was about, you know, maximising everything we could get, and you know, you worry about that if we got to that point. But yeah, it's off the table now, and nobody's thinking about it, that's for sure.
And in terms of the player sort of hunger after achieving 2 in a row, that must have been a real sort of hunger and an appetite for them at the start of the year. But that's sort of taken off the table. Do they still really, you see a trend, do they still make that hunger, that drive in them to complete a three-piece? Is that the sort of tensions, or is that sort of diminished in sort of some players' eyes? Because I suppose that was the big hunger probably at the start of the year, to drive them on again. And they've achieved everything they probably want to achieve in terms of Clare club football, putting QC Cup and a championship together as well last year.
Yeah, like there's no drop from the players' point of view. They're an extremely committed, motivated, driven bunch of people. They have a great mentality in relation to how they play the game. They see every challenge in front of them, and they want to achieve the maximum that they can from it. You know, the pressure that comes from the Miltown job is internal. It's that the players drive you in every session, they challenge you, and our job is to challenge them and to create opportunities for them to maximise their performances and win football matches if we can. There's been no diminishment. Like these guys have a massive appetite for success and a massive appetite for what they can achieve and where they can go. And I certainly haven't seen any diminishment since COVID-19. It's just been literally every challenge that's come. How can we face it? How can we be the best we can be? And how can we push ourselves forward all the time? And it's a great environment to be involved in, and they're a great bunch of fellas to, you know, they really make you think about the things you do and really keep you on your toes. And yeah, I'm enjoying it immensely.
I suppose lastly, just before I move on to this year, one quick point about last year as well. I know that I was at the QC Cup final. Miltown beat our own club Clondegad my own club Clondegad in a ding-dong sort of a game in horrendous sort of conditions. But that was a real turning point as well for Miltown season, because for one club the trajectory went one way, and the other one for the club, the crestfallen defeat of that game, it started backfired on Clondegad season. They never really recovered from it. So how important was that for both clubs, when you look back on it last year, achieving that, for Miltown achieving that QC Cup success so close to championship?
I think it gave them a great boost at the time. Obviously, I was a part of the background team. I was just a supporter on the hill like most people. But, the seasons turn on such small things. If you look back to that game, very late on, Sean O'Brien made a really, really good save. It was a deflected shot, which he got down low to his left-hand side. And, who knows what would have been different if that had nestled in the corner of the net. And, it's hard to know. I suppose County Clare had a very difficult draw as well, which doesn't help. It was probably the toughest group to get out of. But certainly from Miltown's point of view, he was onwards and upwards from there. And, I suppose winning games certainly makes a difference. And any title that you'd win certainly drives you on and increases the hunger. And as I said, these guys are really, really, really driven.
Yeah, and I suppose we'll get on to this year now in terms of our build-up. And I suppose, Morris, we know how COVID-19 has affected all the clubs. And in terms of league action, did you get any round? Were you lucky enough? Were you one of those teams that got a game at the start of the year in the QC Cup?
We did, yeah. We played Kilmurry on March the 7th. And they won and they played quite well on the day. We didn't really, it was a poor day. We didn't play that well. So look, I suppose it's so long ago now, it probably has no bearing on much really. Look, it was very challenging obviously for everybody, but we worked with Paddy Carey, he's the strength and conditioning coach we got in, and he really, really professional fella. He worked individually with the players on their individual physical work. He also then we had online sessions and to try to keep the community kind of aspect to it and to keep the players in good shape when they come back. And you have to be honest to say a lot of them have come back. You'd be worried as the manager that guys did take their foot off the gas, but certainly hasn't been the case. The vast majority of guys have come back in exceptional shape. And look, I suppose at one point everybody thought there'd be no football. It's great that we're sitting here talking about a club championship now. It's I know a lot of people think with inter-county, but for me, the summer doesn't start until you have a bit of club when the club championship starts, and you're thinking about where the games are going to be and who the draw is and stuff. So it's great that we're back, and I think the players have done really well considering how difficult it was and how uncertain it was.
Yeah, I suppose, Morris, you have a new asset in terms of your background staff this year. I know a good friend of yours as well. You were able to add Ned English from Kenturk in terms of a coaching role. I suppose you are a Miltown man. You know the players, Miltown lads, since they were 9-10. You've seen them up through the age. But for Ned coming in at the start of the year, he probably wasn't as aware as much of those guys. And for him, especially in terms of how COVID has affected him, he probably got to spend probably only a month maybe with these boys before everything kicked in. So is for him like is it you obviously you know him by like the Miltown lads by the back of your hand, but is it for him, is it still a learning process getting to know the lads?
Actually, he only had a week before the first game, and then a week after that it calmed down. And I suppose then when we came back, we with the travel restrictions, it was difficult for him to come up. But look, he didn't know the players that well, and it's been a bit of a learning experience for him, really. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I suppose in terms of this year and last year, Morris, in terms of players that are available to you, I suppose, is it true that you probably are Darren McDonough and Kieran Malone, are they going to be a part of the Miltown panel this year?
Kieran Malone isn't at the moment. He had last year carried an ongoing injury which he's working through at the moment, so that rules him out. Darren McDonough obviously lives in the UK, and I'm speaking to Darren very regularly, but look, the whole COVID thing is very up in the air, and how he's going to be able to be involved is there's question marks over it. But look, if it's something we can do, certainly, Darren's given a lot. It's difficult when you travel that kind of distance, a big impact on your personal life. But he's a really, really, really good player, Darren. We'll obviously be hoping to have him involved.
And is there any other notable departures from the Miltown team, or is still everyone from last year fully on board?
Gro Curtin was injured in the Clonmel Commercials game last year, and he still is working through his injury at the moment. He worked with Paddy Carey and with the physio team, obviously his own physio team. And Owen Curtin isn't part of the panel this year. He has decided to hang up his boots. A great servant to the club who achieved an awful lot for Miltown, and he'll be sorely missed, that's for sure. Even had big impact in late in games last year, and we'll certainly miss Owen, but he's going to enjoy his retirement, I'd say.
And Morris, in terms of new additions to the Miltown panel, I worked with a young lad there for a few years in the Clare development squads, and he's probably available to you this year. A fantastic kicker of a football from long range, Cian O'Mahony. And is Cian or Zach or another lad, Zach Whelan, are they part of your plans this year, or part of your management?
Yeah, definitely. A number of minors will come in this year. Cian Mahoney, as you said, Paul Keane, and also Killian O'Malley. Killian O'Malley isn't minor this year, but Killian had a big injury last year, so this is his first year of the panel, so he's looking to make an impact there. Also, Zach is part of the panel as well, and he was on the fringe of it last year, and he's hoping maybe to develop a bit more as well. Also, Cian Flanagan was with the 21s, County 21 panel in Behall and Usheen as well. So we've got a lot of good young fellas, and there's a great blend of experience and youth. It's about marrying it all together now and trying to get the maximum out of everybody and get everyone performing, firing all cylinders,
Yeah, I suppose, Morris, you have an awful lot of dual contingent players as well that will be playing the hurling, particularly for Kilmurry. And I was speaking to Colin Collins yesterday, and he didn't really see it as a hindrance. They're well used to it that Cracklow have been drawn against Kilmurry. But Kilmurry, on the other side, have been drawn against Cracklow. For you have an awful lot of players that are going to be involved, like Aidan Maloney, like Conor Clare, they're going to be playing. And that game between Kilmurry and Cracklow is perceived to be an absolute ding-dong battle. They're saying it'll probably go to the wire, probably the draw of the Clare Senior Hurling Championship. Is that probably a hindrance for you trying to work that coming? So you have a mammoth game against Kilmurry Ibrickane that you're trying. Conor obviously is needed by Kilmurry, Aidan Maloney, so you're trying to work it best between both clubs to maximise them both. And probably a week before championship, the likes of Conor and Aidan Maloney, they don't have the most easiest hurling game when you consider how good Cracklow are as well, getting to county final. So that must be a difficult task, and you're just hoping to God that they come through without no scars. And is that good to have such a real tough game under their legs as well? Because obviously Conor and Aidan are big players for you, or would you have preferred maybe an easier draw for the Kilmurry?
Well, whatever about commenting on football draws, I'm not going to comment on hurling. I'd be out of my depth there. Look, I've spoken to Kieran O'Neill. We have an agreement in place with the lads. The main thing from their point of view is to manage their rest and manage their recuperation. We have Aidan and Conor and Joe Carmody on both panels, and all I'm hoping for is fingers crossed that they come back to me in one piece. And there's a very set system there between the two clubs to manage the lads. The guys know themselves. They're very professional lads, and just to manage their rest, to make sure they're not tied up in relation to Kilmurry and Cracklow. I wouldn't have a clue.
And I suppose, Morris, if I can bring you on to your opponents, Kilmurry Ibrickane, obviously a very experienced seasoned championship outfit. Aidan Maloney, he's guided them to Jack Daly before, and he's done well with many clubs, and he knows the Kilmurry Ibrickane lads inside out. And they haven't really much retirements. Very much the same team that was there last year is there again this year. And I suppose some of those youngsters like Diarmid King, like Daniel Walsh, they're a year older. I don't think Quailon O'D is available to them, but some of those promising youngsters, they're getting a bit older. Aidan McCarthy is coming 22 or 20 years. So bit by bit, Kilmurry Ibrickane are reblemishing their sort of ranks in terms of ejecting youth and sort of pace into their team as well. It's not just the Shane Hickeys, the Coughlins, the Key Kings, the Marty McMahons anymore.
Oh, I mean, I think if you look at the county final last year, both games, I mean, you see the impact Daniel Walsh had, and young players can have a big impact. I mean, sometimes, we, as you say, we look at the guys who've done it numerous times, but every team needs to be rejuvenated and young people coming through it. When a guy starts playing football, that's what he wants to do. He wants to, play with the guys he grew up watching, and Kilmurry have a good side. There's no twist about that. You can see the county final last year, very little between the teams. It's probably going to be much the same the next day. Small margins here and there that make a difference. And look, I suppose having watched the lads growing up, like you and my son will be the same age as Quillen and Daniel and Diarmid King, and I watched them play under-county football when they were young, and they're top quality performers, like our own lads like Cian Flanagan, Mihal Murray, Shane Looney, and all these guys. They come of age and they get their chance, and the cycle continues.
Yeah, and I suppose, Morris, in terms of that sort of game, it's going to be, many perceive, you have some real calibre forwards on Owen Cleary, Cormac Murray, then you throw at the other side, Keelan and Dermot. Any of those guys can catch fire and hit 8-9 points a game, and that's obviously whichever set up two forwards catch fire is probably the team that's going to win the game. But there's a capability that one guy can just absolutely shoot the lights out. We've seen Keelan do it several times for Kilmurry. We've seen Owen Cleary do it for you. And that's the part of ungiven sort of knowing that being able, as a manager, there's no form guide. So as you're trying to size up your opponents, you have to really identify very quick which opponent forward is the one on song, and try and nullify him as quickly as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, you name 4 guys there, are probably top 4 performers in the county over the last number of years. And, I suppose the problem with that is everybody knows about them and knows of them. But as you said, Jim, there's no form here. Like, this is coming into a game where it's very much going to be on the day, like who can maximize over the next couple of weeks what they can do, who can, get challenge matches that push them as far as possible. And then really quickly you're going to be dropped into championship games where the pace will be quicker, decisions have to be made faster. And as you say, it's about probably the people on the day that produce that little bit of extra magic, that, maybe some guy on one side does something and he produces a score which kind of is enough to take you over the line. And these guys are top performers because they can do that, and we'll be doing everything we can to try and close down the Kilmurry guys. I'm sure they'll be doing exactly the same on the other side.
And Morris, you're probably back for 3 weeks now in terms of rebuilding and sort of getting the engine going again in terms of Miltown. But I'm just wondering for you, I spoke to Aidan Maloney and he said, I spoke to him about not being involved in the Garmin Cup, and he said they haven't really found, they've gone outside the county, they've been able to go outside the county and source challenges and really good short challenges, obviously not giving away who they were, obviously. But in terms of yourself, have you found a difficult path to try and source out challenges, or have you gone out, been able to go outside the county, and you still plan to go outside the county, or are you looking, have you entered the Garmin Cup and are you going to get 1 or 2 rounds out of that?
Yeah, we've had a couple of games outside the county and we have a couple more planned. If Aidan isn't going to tell you who he played, I'm certainly not going to tell you either then. Yeah. We're playing in Stymon on Sunday morning in the first round of the Garmin Cup.
Okay, so you've entered that, yeah.
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 So we'll probably use this as an opportunity to give 1 or 2 guys who maybe haven't had as much game time as they would like in that game, and try and manage them through that, and make sure there's no problems or injuries out of that, and make sure their rest is managed also. But yeah, so Sunday morning in Stymon probably is our first outing.
Yeah, and I suppose that Garmin Cup tie you mentioned there, is that more like to look and see at options, say from what are your options from 16 to 24 in terms of guys that you might be called upon the day to make a positive impact? Is that the way you're treating this tie, to maybe to build a squad? We all know football is not a 15-man game anymore. It's very much a 20-man game. And is that what this game against the Garmin Cup is, a useful challenge in terms of being able to size up your options beyond the 15? Yeah,
definitely. We have a panel of 36, over 36, and when you go to games, some guys are getting very limited time, and obviously you want to give them an opportunity to show what they can do. They're training very hard, they put in the same effort as everybody else, and we'll be using the game on Sunday to give those guys a chance to put their hand up and show me that they should be in the higher up the ranking, maybe, or whatever way you want to put it.
Yeah, and I suppose, Morris, in terms of this championship this year, I suppose you are defending champions. You are everyone's team that wants to be shot at. You're the big sort of noose for everyone to try and put around your neck, as the saying goes. But the format for this year, I suppose, the simple target for you, obviously, is the forward straight route. Win your first game, win the game in your winners round. You're straight into the semi-final. You're one of those 3 teams. You don't have to go worry about that third place sort of round robin that'll happen to make up the 4th semi-finals. You get to go, you get to the luxury, and you get to see that sort of round robin format take place and size up who the 4th semi-finalists will be if you do meet if you are drawn against them. But on the flip side of that, if you look at the champion structure, and that the team that does make that semi-final from the fourth spot, they'll be carrying so savage momentum, because they'll probably have won 3 games on the bounce, and they probably will have won 2 games on the same day as well, because they'll probably go in the form team into the semi-final, even though they probably lost their opening round game, given that they'll probably have put 3 or 4 wins together. So can you see the positives of both sides?
Yeah, definitely. I suppose it's a new format, and with the whole COVID-19 and the time limitations, you know, there's upsides and downsides to both parts of it. Personally, Miltown are going to try and win the games that we have in front of us. And if we end up on the other side, then we'll just reassess and we'll take it from there. Yeah, you probably have a point, maybe, you know, that if you're winning games coming up the opposite side, you will build momentum and confidence. But you know, probably be happier to be in the semi-final looking at those games rather than, you know, because effectively the championship is knockout after the first round. So if you lose after the first round, you're gone. So you know, focus on winning matches, performing to a very, very high level, and whatever the route is, you know.
And is that a daunting prospect for any team to have to more than likely play 2 championship games on the one day? And I suppose for a club like yourself who has players involved in Kilmaley and stuff, dual sort of players, that would be a rigorous sort of torture to put on those lads to play 2 games in a one day in a sort of a round robin 3-way playoff to make that 4-place semi-finals. Do you think that's a bit too much to ask on a club?
They're going to be playing on the one weekend, are they?
I didn't. Oh, they could be the one weekend or the one day.
I think it's a Friday and a Monday, but it still is, yeah. Like, and particularly if you have dual players, because the dual players will be out again probably on the Sunday if they're still in the championship. So yeah, that's something you would look at. You would build momentum, but certainly you could have problems again, like you were saying in the previous question. You know, you'd have to look at your squad and look at, you know, guys you could rest maybe, and you know, try to manage through that weekend. So again, if you had hurling players, it would make it even more complex. But like, you know, the level of preparation the players put in now is extremely high, and you know, the level of attention to detail in relation to recuperation and rest is very, very high as well. So that's something you'd have to manage, put structures in place, and put procedures in place to manage that. But you could see being a problem. Like, the biggest issue for a guy is if you get an injury, the championship is so tight, it's very, very difficult, and that's something we're very conscious of at the moment, managing guys that have niggles and problems and trying to build in as much rest as possible for them, so that there's no serious injury that rules them out for you know, like as you said, there's no league. Your the whole year is only played off in 6 weeks, and if you get an injury at the wrong time, the whole thing's destroyed, you know.
I suppose, Morris, that game against near rivals, Kilmurry Ibrickane, obviously they'd be goading to sort of take you down to what happened in terms of the championship final last year. But for yourselves as a team, as a management, as you probably looking at yourself as a new team, a new management, a new crop of everything is, as the saying going, once December 31st comes around, everything from the previous year is history. It's all about the new year, and history is consigned to the history books. It's all about making new history. And I suppose for Miltown Malbay this year, if you are victorious in the first round, which you obviously aim to achieve against Kilmurry Ibrickane, you'll have no fears going into that second round, the winners round, because obviously taking the scalp of Kilmurry Ibrickane, even though you are champions, it'll give you a sort of massive drive and incentive that you wouldn't actually, as defending county champions, you won't fear anyone anyway. But even going into the winners round, having that scalp of Kilmurry of the first round, players can sort of relax into the championship as such.
I don't know if relaxed is the right word, Jim.
Yeah.
If you relax too much, you might not be in the championship anymore. Look, we're focused on Kilmurry. We're focused on the first round of the championship, maximising performance. You know, and once that game is over, we'll reassess and we'll reprioritise things that need to be done. It's like you say, you know, talking about last year, talking about the games that have been won, talking about days of what, you know, the past. There's nothing to be gained. You know, we crossed the white line in the first round of the championship against Kilmurry. There'll be nothing for what happened last year. And we need to be very clear about that. And in the same way that if we win or they win, when you cross the white line in the second eight, there's nothing for the previous round. You have to win the game that's in front of you. So we'll take one game at a time, and we'll focus very clearly on the objectives that we have, and we'll focus very clearly on performing really, really high level. And, you know, that's all we can do round by round.
And I suppose, Morris, in terms of the build-up now, have you any sort of serious injuries or anyone against a race against time to make the first round, or have you any player that probably will definitely be out for the first round, for the first few rounds in terms of your panel?
Other than the long-term growth curtain, no, nobody. The guy's nursing small, you know, hamstring tweaks. We're probably a little bit overzealous about it at the moment, in the sense that things are so condensed, so we're extremely protective, like we're of guys, and trying to get them to build in, as I've said 3 or 4 times, plenty rest and to take nights off if they're feeling any kind of twinge. So at the moment, we're lucky enough we don't have anybody that's in very serious jeopardy, you know.
And I suppose one thing before I forgot it, you had 2 or 3 players involved with the Clare 20s under a Miltown man as well, in Michael Neelan. And for you as a management, as a new management, you would have got to see those players up close. Obviously, they played the Munster semi-final against Cork above Miltown. But for those players experiencing a county setup under Michael Neelan, having probably 2 or 3 months of training in the legs, the likes of Oisin Looney, Michael Murray, for example, and your boy, I think, was in it for a while as well. And in terms of having that's obviously, they're going to come back in good shape, in good health. They had a county sort of program, and they'll probably have a good lot of football played as well. So they won't be lacking in football, those boys, I know.
No, Keith Flanagan was part of the panel as well. I mentioned him earlier. No, they weren't. Look, anybody that gets onto a county panel and has a level of ability that's there for all to see. The lads certainly came back. They had a bit of a break, and they were kind of just coming back to us, and then it all went down. So they've obviously gone into COVID probably in better shape than most, and they've managed to hold that level. As you said, the inter-county training has benefited them a lot. But also, you know, a bit of time off, a bit away from football to get a break. I suppose last year was very long for Miltown. They ran off into November, and then the guys went straight into the county 20s. So it did benefit too from a bit of a couple of months where, you know, football wasn't very high in the agenda, and give them a chance to recharge the batteries.
On that note, Morris Reidy, an absolute pleasure talking to you this evening. We wish you and Ned English and all the rest of your management team the best of luck in the upcoming championship, as you look to put an historic 3 county titles back to back. We hope it's a very prosperous campaign for all the players, management, and all the supporters of Miltown Malbay, a great traditional powerhouse of West Clare football. And we hope that you look back in 2020, a bleak year for so many, but come November or December, you'll have happy memories of the year, and you'll have set out and achieved the targets that you wanted to achieve at the start of the year. So all that's left to me to say to you, Morris, is best luck in the championship, and hopefully everything will go to plan for you and for Miltown Malbay. Take care.
Thank you much, Jim.